Chicago. We welcome all sisters and brothers, friends, family, and neighbors, and all the citizens of the world to yet another edition of Live from the Heartland. This is Heartland at Home number 82, for those of you who are keeping track of the shows we're not doing while the studio is closed to us, that we're not doing live, but recorded. And we're happy that you're still listening. This is the show for January 1st, 2022. Yes, folks, we're at that point, 2022. And we're going to be talking with guests Carrie Liderson and Michael Harrington. But first, we'd like to wish everyone a Happy New Year. And may it be a much better one for all of us and for the entire planet. So let's just think for a moment about our various rituals that we like to do with family, with our tribes, with our neighbors. And let's pause and do libations to the new year. Think about our wishes, dreams, and hopes. Without my mate to bounce things around, this will be a shorter little banter, and we'll do more music than normal. The elections that happened in Honduras and Chile since we last spoke to you had some hopeful results, while on the other side of the planet, we've got Russia saber rattling continually on the border of Ukraine, and China closing down one of the last bastions of free press in Hong Kong. Scary stuff. Also under various, what we call various disasters. Afghanistan is starving. There is unrest and repression in Sudan and Myanmar. These are all places that we should be holding in our hearts and, wishing, praying for the best. Between this show and next week's, the year anniversary of the January 6th mayhem will occur. I think calling it an insurrection is giving it a little too much credit. It was a riot and it was mayhem. I feel personally a little dread as it comes closer. Watching that thing play out a year ago on our TVs was a moment of shared national horror for which we all probably have our own versions of PTSD. Mine will worsen seriously if we don't get rid of the 147 repugs that voted not to accept the results of the biggest, fairest election ever held in US history. So it is that we'll be thrilled to welcome back Heather Booth next week to talk about what's up for us in 2022 and what we need to do and what we must accomplish. Just locally and all over the country, there are all manner of January 6th vigils happening. Here in Chicago, one downtown at the Federal Plaza, a number around town from Naperville to Beverly. Form your own with neighbors. Just let us not forget that day and what it means to us. COVID is, running amok, as we all know. Cancellations abound, everything from sports to Broadway. All manner of friends and family and famous folks have tested positive. The only good thing is that folks who have been vaccinated and boosted, when they test positive, are going through it more quickly and without hospitalizations generally. That is a good thing. We learn more about what we both know and don't know, and we'll keep you posted as best we can. We're also thinking right now on the environmental front of the folks in Colorado. Something called the Marshall Fire is burning and running amok. We're thinking of you all. It's in and around Boulder. A town called Louisville is all evacuated. Please get and stay safe. I've seen all kinds of messages from neighbors offering help, offering places for your pets to be safe and for goods for your children. Once again, communities rise up in the face of these horrible happenings, and that's, I guess, one of the most positive things we can say. we still have a kind of wimpy wet winter happening here in Chicago. We did get some snow this week. Of course, it was gone by nightfall. I just wonder, second year in a row, with this kind of wimpy weather, whether we'll be ready when the 10 or 11 feet of snow fall in the first week of February. Remember that? That happened last year. We have a shoveling squad out of the Alderwoman's office here in the 49th Ward, which is great. You can sign up and bring your shovel to needed places. Just before we go to our first guest, I'd like to stick in a Live from the Heartland commercial. We want to recruit team members to this show. Both my face and the other face that's normally on this, we need a break. We're old. And in order to get a fresh bunch of music, we need some younger folks as well. So if you're interested in getting the story out and keeping the stories in the news that need covering, Live from the Heartland is a place that does that. And we'd love your help. So reach out to us via WLUW or via Michael's email at fatback@aol.com. You are listening to Live from the Heartland, Heartland at Home edition number 82 on WLUW 88.7 FM. Stay tuned. We'll return with our first guest, writer, activist, and neighbor, Kari Leiterson. Look at our guest is here, Kari Leiterson. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's great to see you. I in preparation for this, I looked back at an interview that we did live on the show. I think it was actually still when it was on the stage at the Heartland a few years back. I can't remember now. I wrote it down somewhere. But anyway, it was great to be reminded of all of the great things that you do and have done. I think at that time we were basically talking about this book.
Oh yeah,
because we had just gone through the election that a lot of us worked on for Chewy when this guy got reelected, and it was an interesting conversation, as I recall. So now we are looking at 2022. Can you believe it?
I know, not really.
Yeah, I can't. I have a hard time. And given everything that we've gone through, we just should launch into it. Kari, you have covered a lot of the issues that we continually try to keep track of on this show. For example, a couple of weeks ago, we had Jan and Lan Reichert from the Pioneers in Middle State, Illinois. They were talking about a recent victory on the coal tar sands removal that they won. Hard fought, hard won victories, these. And I know that's one of the issues that you've kept track of. And you look, I gotta say, you do look like you're in California right now. You're tan and lovely. And you told me you've already been out surfing this morning.
That's right.
Dang, girl, that's hot.
There was a bunch of dolphins, gorgeous sunrise. Yep.
Oh my gosh, what a great way to welcome in the new year. I had asked people to just do whatever is their version of libations as we listen to Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions sing People Get Ready, because I really want people to get ready for this year. So first of all, you are clearly not still in Pilsen where you were for a time, and you were doing mural tours back in, I don't know how long ago. Do you still have a home here in Chicago?
Oh yeah, I still live in Pilsen. I still live and work in Chicago. I'm out here for the holidays out in San Diego where I grew up, and I've been here on and off during the pandemic, working remotely and spending time with my family and with the ocean. But I'm still in Chicago.
Yeah, good, great, because we like the way you cover our news here. It's important to us. For example, one of the things I looked up and saw was this, was it NCA? You had a Great Lakes climate change impact conversation. Are you still working on that? I mean, is that just one of the many topics you keep your hand in, I assume?
Yeah, the Great Lakes for sure. NC is an awesome publication. I did a project with them, and I do stuff with Great Lakes now a lot. I mean, it's just such a, as always, such a crucial time to be understanding the Great Lakes and appreciating them. And as a journalist, I love covering the Great Lakes, and with all these crazy things going around the world with climate change, the Great Lakes region, of course, is so affected by climate change, and sometimes in ways that are more subtle or less in your face than the fires in Colorado right now at this time of year, and the hurricanes and everything. But it's all related, and it's just so important to keep tabs on what's going on the Great Lakes environmentally and socially and everything like that.
We've got locally, Deb Shore, who probably know, has been on the Metropolitan Water Reclamation Board for the last 12 or more years, got picked for the local EPA directorship, which bodes very well for Great Lakes health. While simultaneously we try and keep covering the stories about stopping line 3 and line 6.
Yes.
And all of these issues. One of them is, most of the activity, I think, is now up in Minnesota on line 3, but it could be over the board, the state line of Wisconsin as well. I think it's right there on the river. Any observations that you've made about the Midwest's continued activism on trying to do water protection here? Since you have, as a freelancer all over the nation, you have a good eyes view of where this struggle goes nationally. How do you feel about how we're doing here? How are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, the battle protecting water in the Great Lakes has been a really groundbreaking battle for a long time on all different levels. Grassroots activists, indigenous activists and leaders fighting things like the oil pipelines under the lakes and mining and coal-fired power that pollutes the Great Lakes. And then, going back more than a decade, we had this big policy, legislative, pretty amazing effort to pass the Great Lakes Compact to make sure that Great Lakes water stays in the Great Lakes and can't be diverted out of the Great Lakes basin. So, I mean, there's just been, there's so many ways that the Great Lakes need to be protected. And I think one of the things that's so fascinating about the Great Lakes is just how, like, say when I'm out in the ocean, the ocean is extremely impacted by people, unfortunately, hugely. But you don't see it as obviously. It still feels like, very pristine, and it's just so vast. Whereas, and you don't see the impacts of industry everywhere, although we do have signs on our local beaches about tar balls washing up from the oil spill off Huntington Beach a few months ago. So the ocean is also very much being abused and impacted by people. But and the Great Lakes, even more so, they've just been shaped by industry and pollution and human behavior, going back really, like, since essentially settling and industrializing our country forever changed the Great Lakes. So, there's not even a concept of bringing the Great Lakes back to pristine or natural. It's really this, like, very interesting balance and strategy of, trying to find, like, an equilibrium where the lakes can continue to be used for human society and human industry, and yet, invasive species, a lot of these species will never be gotten rid of with climate change. Even the, original natural species wouldn't necessarily do well anymore. So the Great Lakes are just a really fascinating and important example of how we kind of mitigate the harm we've done and, like, learn to help nature live in balance with people.
Yeah. But that's great. And speaking of nature, since we saw you, and I know Michael, this was on Michael's list, so I'm trying to serve him. Antarctica. You went to Antarctica since we last talked to you. Tell us about that and how being there also informs your environmental awareness, planetary wise. Anything you want to share about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an experience that at this moment feels surreal. It's hard to even believe I was there, and I never imagined I'd get to go there. Actually, I'm wearing a hat from this clean energy, Spanish clean energy company that supported me to go there on this totally amazing program with 100 women scientists. So the idea was 100 women scientists and engineers. It's a program called Homeward Bound, started by an Australian woman, and they haven't done it since the pandemic, but for a number of years, they'd been sending 100 women in science to Antarctica to sort of bond and just see firsthand some of the most critical examples of how climate change is affecting our world and what's at stake here, to help them lead the fight against climate change. So I got to go as a journalist to basically document that. And I mean, there's just no words to describe like the majesty and the fragility and just the absolute wonder, among the many things I learned, the Southern Ocean, which essentially circles Antarctica, is really the driver of our entire world's climate. It's kind of like the engine of the currents and the various things that happen throughout the ocean. Some of the women on this trip were experts, spent their lives studying the Southern Ocean, and really drove home to me. I had never even heard of the Southern Ocean before, honestly, but it's this thing that a lot of people
our
don't
listeners
know about.
haven't either.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just I mean, talk about like being in awe of nature. Absolutely blew my mind, needless to say. And,
I had no idea it was a women-centered trip. That
Mhm.
sounds wonderful to me. And also with experienced oceanographers, God, it just must have been fabulous for you.
It was, yeah, I feel really lucky,
Yeah.
and really in awe of those women. And yeah.
Well, back on land,
Mhm.
the other stuff that you cover a lot, and I don't know if it came out of being in Pilsen or if you're interested in Mexico, Central America, and South America, predated your living in that neighborhood. But both Michael and I have had the good fortune of being traveling in all of those places. And we had recently, 2 weeks ago, we had someone on who works with Honduras. And since we talked to her, there's been an election both in Honduras and Chile that had positive results. I only hesitate because I'm just not sure if these people are going to be allowed to govern, particularly the woman in Honduras. You have experience in these places. You've written about all over the Southern Hemisphere, our neighbors to the south. What are your reactions to what's going on there? Maybe those two elections or beyond, if you have something else you'd rather focus on.
Well, I haven't been in Chile. I did get to go to Honduras and report.
How do you get to Antarctica without going to Chile?
Oh, I was in Argentina, actually. We launched from Argentina, Ushuaia. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's been a while since I've been in Honduras, but as you know, I know you've had them on the show many times. La Voz de los de Abajo and fantastic activists here in Chicago have really been working in solidarity with Honduras, and I've gotten to go with them a number of times in the past. So yeah, to see Xiomara, if I'm pronouncing her name right, elected in Honduras was a great, awesome, surprising victory. And of course, as you said, what that means, how she'll be allowed to govern, to what extent the US and other forces will interfere, hopefully much less than in the past, for any number of reasons. That'll really be something to see. And, it's just a testament, the fact that she was elected, even with all the oppression and brutality and murders that have happened, over the past, many decades, but especially the last decade in Honduras, roughly since Manuel Zelaya, her husband, had been deposed in a coup, and right-wing forces took over in Honduras. Just the way that activists and just regular people on the ground, campesinos, LGBTQ people, all different people who are being very actively attacked by these administrations, the way they've just kept fighting and managed to be victorious in this election. It's unbelievably inspiring, and yeah, hopefully And I mean, I can only imagine how the pandemic is impacting Honduras and will continue to too. But
Well,
yeah.
yeah, and I mean, the number of uh, refugees leaving Honduras in the last number of years and traveling through Mexico to come to our border has ballooned, mushroomed from that country. I wonder if they'll be able to stem that tide. I mean, in order for that to happen, they have to get the gangs out of control. And right now, the gangs are fairly heavily in control in there and in Haiti, and making life pretty rough on a lot of folks. So let me try. The other thing that we covered, you've covered in your, what is it now, 5 books you've written?
Yeah, for in different forms. Yeah.
Dang.
I mean, I've written a couple more of different sorts, but 5 main ones.
Wow. Well, I want to lead people to your website, KariLiderson.net, where a lot of those books are talked about, and you can order them. And yeah, you're very prolific. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was economic inequity. We talked about it a lot when we've talked about Mayor 1% with you few years ago, but now since we've talked to you, we've had Trump, and the various ways that we've seen our government try to save the economy without necessarily putting together the best safety net. COVID taught us about the lack of a safety net. So what kind of observations do you have, and maybe coming out of this period of COVID, are you looking to cover or uncover more of that story in a special way? What are your thoughts about what we've all discovered about ourselves in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, like any disaster and crisis, COVID in Chicago and everywhere really just stripped bare, made totally evident what we already knew about inequality and vulnerability, and, really, I mean, widen the divide between like just the types of experiences people have had during COVID are so vastly different. And, just one other way that we underscored, like, just these vast chasms in our society. So, I mean, I'm just struggling to, sort of understand, like, say we have this record low unemployment, wages are going up, places can't even hire enough workers. And yet vulnerability and poverty and lack of agency, I mean, people are suffering and struggling as much as ever. So and then, I mean, to link it back to Honduras too, like, we have all these jobs and yet people aren't being allowed to come here to seek asylum, and there's all these supply chain bottlenecks. Like, I think COVID just really laid bare like what a kind of house of cards our global economy is in a lot of ways, that it disrupted the labor flows and good flows of goods. And so I mean, I don't really have a coherent point, because I think it's just, there's so much, this is the prime opportunity to try to understand, like, okay, people, it's very evident why someone wouldn't want to be working, for even $15 an hour, no less, like $8 an hour. And now a lot of people aren't working those jobs, and yet people aren't, they're not working just because they were working before for fun. I mean, people are really struggling now with childcare and healthcare and the risk of COVID. And, I can only imagine that not in the US, not to mention developing countries, like, just the desperation and economic inequality will just continue to get worse because of what COVID did to us. So, yeah, I mean, my personal journalistic focus lately has been more on energy and environment and environmental justice, which we also see effects of climate change really enveloping us, which of course only exacerbates flows of refugees, and even in a given city, that's already struggling from COVID. I mean, we saw that with the wildfires in California last year and the hurricanes, right? As people were vulnerable from COVID, these natural disasters were also making it impossible for people to socially distance. So anyway, so all these, time in history has always been crazy. I don't know, and unjust. I don't know if this period is any worse, but it certainly feels like there's a lot of forces really coming to a head right now. And on one hand, there's like the very critical issues like economic desperation, and then there's the sort of slower burn ones like the environment that are equally critical and can get pushed to the back burner when we're struggling to like put out each individual fire, in some cases like literally fire. Yeah.
Well, I guess our time is almost up, and maybe the last thing I would ask you is, what do you feel like the outlook for significant social change might be in the next little bit, given that this is a midterm election year and there's a lot of attention? We're coming up on the January 6th anniversary. I'm hoping people feel like I do, but I'm not sure. And it's hard to tell when you're all isolated because of COVID. What do you feel the outlook for social change is now?
I definitely feel hopeful despite it all. In terms of the midterms, politics just seems like such a rat's nest. I can't really feel hopeful about that. But, I think hopefully the pandemic did bring out some of people's empathy and better qualities. And, the George Floyd protests and the ongoing racial justice reckoning, I feel like is a positive trajectory obviously it's a positive trajectory, but I think that like hopefully will have made lasting impacts on, people's consciousness and keep moving in that direction. And going back to the economy and the jobs and the supply chain stuff, like hopefully people and climate change, natural disasters, like hopefully we're at some kind of inflection point where people do a better job of trying to make sense of things and trying to work for equity and justice. So I'll vote to be hopeful for 2022.
Your lips to the goddess's ears. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Carrie, for talking with us today, for spending this 20 minutes or so with us. We really appreciate it. And Hank 10 or whatever they say out there.
Thank you. Good.
All right.
Thanks so much. It was really nice to talk with you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you.
It. And there you are. Welcome, Michael Harrington, my friend, my neighbor, my co-conspirator.
Happy New Year to both of us.
Indeed, to all of us, to everyone. We're kind of doing a libations show here today. I've been playing a lot of music because my partner's out of commission. So to take up the slack on his chatter is I get to play music. So thanks for asking for Marvin Gaye. I'm always happy to play what's going on.
My favorite. Absolutely my favorite.
Indeed. For those of you who don't know, Michael Harrington is a longtime activist, from both the neighborhood political level back in the 44th Ward decades ago, up to and through his activism on the Chicago Teachers Union with Karen Lewis, up to and including his activism and helping to run a campaign against Rahm Emanuel, which we didn't quite make. But after that, we joined forces up here in the 49th Ward and have been doing our own activism in the Network 49, under the Network 49 umbrella. But significantly, Michael has been part of the citywide group of activists working on the issue of police brutality and police reform, dating back to when we had Sheila Betty at an event.
Well, 4 or 5 years ago, we've been in it.
Over 5 years, yeah. I was going to say, and first there were two plans, CPAC and GAPA. And we were all part of that conversation, but let's ask you to bring us up to date without me asking all kind of not useful questions. So yeah, welcome, dear.
Thank you. And I'm happy to share. I'm happy to share with you and our neighbors and actually all of Chicago about some important things that are happening this year. This new year kicks off a new phase or maybe even a new era for citizen oversight of Chicago policing. And there's three important things that are happening, all starting this year, that we need to be aware of and be prepared to participate in. The first important thing is that this month, January, the mayor is expected to appoint members to serve on the Interim Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. The Commission for Public Safety and Accountability basically is the new oversight body to oversee the police department, the Civilian Office for Police Accountability, and the Chicago Police Board. The aldermen and city council are going to identify 14 candidates for the mayor to appoint to 7 seats on the Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. Those people will be responsible for directing policies of the Chicago Police Department and enforcing more accountability, creating more accountability for what policing is in Chicago. You know, we've been involved in helping monitor the Chicago Police Consent Decree for 3 years, and we're still very active in many activities related to rewriting police policy and paying attention to what police training is all about, many areas that need to be improved in policing. And, you know, every citizen, every resident of Chicago, every taxpayer, every homeowner needs to understand clearly that we all have a stake in more professionalism and more accountability from policing. The families that have been hurt, the people that have died, the costs, the $1 million annual costs and payouts for settlements that are the result of poor policing needs to be reversed. And that's what this new commission is going to be doing, and working with the Chicago Police Department, the police superintendent, the mayor's office, and all of the other structures that manage policing in Chicago. So this new commission is to be appointed this month. The second thing that's happening this month is, not this month, but this year, is the work to put a referendum on the ballot in the June primary. The referendum will not only create this oversight commission as an elected body. The first year is interim. The mayor is going to appoint appointees to the commission, but there will be an election for members of the commission as a result of this referendum, which will also empower the commission to actually hire and fire police superintendent, the police board members, and the director of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, which investigates police misconduct. The police board actually acts to hire and fire individual officers, and the police superintendent, as you know, is in charge of the whole 13,000 member department. The referendum will also empower the commission to be the ones leading the negotiations for the police contract, as well as managing the police budget.
I got a question.
Yes.
Is this referendum that you're talking about, is that something that people are going to have to ask for signatures for starting in January?
As I understand it, the initial intent is to ask the city council to put the referendum on the ballot. City council has the right to put 3 referendums on the ballot. And if all goes well, the council will agree that this is something that the voters of Chicago should decide. Should we have civilian oversight of the police department, which includes empowering this civilian oversight commission?
You think chances are good that the city council will do that?
Well, all we can do is hope and see. I know, wait and see. I know that our own alderman, Maria Haddon, is fully on board. She's been a strong advocate for professionalism and accountability with the police department. The third thing that's happening this year, and will be later in the fall, members of the public across the city will be running for office to be elected to local police district councils. So in the 22 police districts in the city, each district will have I believe it's a 3-member council of residents in that neighborhood who are elected to the police district council, which will implement the oversight of policing in that district. And those elections will be held in June 2023. But that election will be happening. The people campaigning for office will happen near the end of the year. It'll just be like automatic elections, actually. happening in police districts.
Wow.
So those three things are important. The installation of a new commission to oversee policing in Chicago, a referendum to empower that commission even more, and then election of local district councils. We're at Network 49, we're going to be very involved in paying attention to this, and then also looking at candidates and qualifications for election, which will be happening in about a year. So that's pretty much what's happening right now.
Michael, you have kept us very involved in this, thanks to your heading up the police, the community safety task force in the part of Network 49. And you and a couple other members of the group did tremendous work. You took myself and another steering committee member to a couple trainings at the police academy last month.
We had 4 of us in October.
Yeah.
Four of us went for 2 full days of paying attention to what happens at the Chicago Police Academy, where the training is done for police recruits. We spent a lot of time talking to the trainers and looking at how and what they were teaching to police cadets. What they're teaching the police cadets, we were happy to see some good things, and we're also concerned about other things.
Right.
But we were happy to see that some of the work that a lot of us did over the last summer to improve police accountability as far as de-escalation practices, how and when they use their weapons, how they report and pay attention to, and how transparent they are or are not in letting the public know what's going on. We discovered at the police academy that some of that is now being taught.
I was so impressed. I was so impressed to see that, and to have them be very clear about showing you and the other community members from across the city who were at those trainings, saying, "See, we took your advice," kind of thing, and pointing that out at various places. Very impressive. I mean, nothing could be more important. I don't have too many more minutes, but I want to ask, have you by any chance caught the Nova that is currently airing called Unapologetic?
I haven't seen that.
Oh,
I just saw Don't Look Up last week, which is a fantastic film.
It is good. That is great. I saw that too. Unapologetic is a Nova special that highlights especially the young women organizing here in Chicago to keep Black Lives Matter front and center. And they are significantly lesbian women of color that are highlighted in this film. I'm going to ask you another time what you think of it if you've seen it. Yeah, I recommend people check it out because I'm very impressed by what it was. And I guess the last thing I should check with you, what are your hopes and dreams for the new year, Michael Harrington?
My hopes and dreams are, number one, for the health and safety of my family, my daughter and my son. I'm concerned about them and all of my friends and neighbors. This COVID epidemic is continuing, and I and we all mask up with our N95 masks when we go out. We're very careful about we've been vaccinated, and I've been boosted as well. So health and safety is a real important thing. But I also hope for the new year that more of our neighbors get involved in supporting civilian oversight of the Chicago police. I think that's very crucial and essential. There's been too much tragedy as a result of us not paying attention to how policing is managed in Chicago. It's too much cost and financial burden on the city as a result of us not paying attention. So I'm real still very focused on that as the issue.
Amen to that. And hopefully that we'll get a little more activity here in the 49th Ward. Even this week, there's a lot of January 6th memorials happening this week, vigils, etc. Everything from what's going on down the Federal Plaza on January 6th to neighborhood groupings. And I don't know, I think I'd like to do one up here in the neighborhood too, that just says we want democracy returned and we pay attention, and we will continue to pay attention. It seems to be a message that these people in Congress need to hear.
No, we need to fight for democracy at block by block, state by state and nationally. With it apparently is a need to continue to fight for it, and it's not perfect right now.
Right.
We need to improve what democracy has always meant. We need to continue working at it. That for us, for me, democracy means that each of us has a right to be involved in decision making that affects our lives.
Amen.
And we need to fight for that.
Amen to that, my brother. We'll talk more about that with Heather Booth next week on this show. But we're so happy that you joined us today, Michael.
Sure.
Michael will be sorry he missed talking to you. He would have thrown in a couple of oddball questions. He would have.
I love Michael James.
I know we all do. And we're all wishing him get well soon. And Michael, I'll see you at our next meeting.
Happy New Year to you and everybody else. Thank you very much.
Happy New Year, darling. Thank you so much. So without my partner, Michael, to fill in the blanks, I'm going to finish with maybe a couple more songs. But first, please do remember January 6th and organize to win back our capital and our democracy in 2022. It's not overstating it to say that's what's at risk here. This week, we lost a couple people, and I'm going to play one song here that reminds me of not just Archbishop Desmond Tutu, but also Mandela himself, who's heard at the start of the song, Nkosi Sikelel' Afrika, the South African national anthem. The other person we lost this week was Harry Reid, who some of you don't even remember, but he was a powerful Democratic senator and a man of many different sides. His obituary or remembrance in the New York Times this week is worth checking out because it can be a lesson on how politics can be done well and requires a lot of different reachings out on the part of those who play it well. And Harry Reid was one of those people who did. And I had a moment in the antechambers of the Capitol in DC once years ago when I was there, thanks to Paul Wellstone taking me on the train underneath that only senators ride. I was in the room when Harry Reid entered this chamber and the senators gathered around him. But what I want to observe, it was the absolute shift in energy that came in to the room with Harry Reid. And it made me know, here is a significant dude. So Harry, good on you. Archbishop Tutu, we love you. We thank you. And what we want to say going out is for over 25 years, we've brought you live from the Heartland, now called Heartland at Home, broadcast every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Central on Chicago's WLUW 88.7 FM, streaming live on WLUW.org. And all of our shows are archived at youtube.com/heartlandmedia. We thank our team, the Live from the Heartland team, Lynn, Luis, the great folks at LUW, including the podcast director, Gwen, who is responsible for getting us on air. Thank you so much, Gwen Brown. Do good in the world. The world needs all the good we do. All power to the people. Let's hear from Joan Baez now. Something to remember.